Today we're talking about whether or not having a graduate degree helps you get a job in digital marketing and in data analytics. Hi, my name is Will. The last 3.5 years I've been working as a senior digital marketing analyst, which is kind of like a subset of a data analyst with more responsibilities, and that's mixed in with digital marketing goals and activities. And then before that, I worked for 5 years at a digital marketing agency where we talked about and worked with SEO, pay-per-click, Facebook ads, Google ads, you know, the works, LinkedIn ads, Twitter ads, a typical performance marketing agency. In this video, I actually want to cover a topic that was requested from me in a free coaching call. I offer free coaching calls to various people on my email newsletter. And in this one, there's one question in particular that stuck out, and I felt it was good to film a video and help others with this. So this coaching client, he's actually from Morocco, which is really cool. He asked me, well, you know, I'm currently working on a master's degree in marketing, not digital marketing, but just marketing. And I'm wondering if that's worth my time. Is it beneficial? Specifically, he was thinking that it may help with the soft skills and communication skills. But what about some of the other stuff? Does it help you get a job? Or is it like just a waste of money? What's your take on it? So let me just tell you, having worked with a lot of different coworkers and a lot of different projects and clients, probably like over 100 clients in my lifetime, in various industries, from small business to mid-sized to large enterprise businesses, having talked to many stakeholders, many different people of different pedigrees, leadership, and so forth, at least in the USA and in the companies I've worked with, and some international companies too, I have found that there's a good portion of them who do not have graduate degrees, and they simply focused on building and developing the skills that are needed to get the job done. And so hiring managers are kind of looking for that. Like, can you get the job done? I don't care what your GPA is, or I don't care what school you went to, or if you have a graduate degree, just show me if you can have the skills necessary to get the job done and you're excellent at your work, and then I'll hire you. Now, this is kind of a more new age era of thinking, and I do believe there's still a good portion that are still old age, old era. So in that sense, I don't think it's a complete loss. There's been a portion of people I've talked to where it's a smaller portion, but like a portion of people I've talked to when I've done informational interviews of people of different companies. And some of them, like one in particular, he straight up told me that, like, hey, like sometimes I've hired someone or I've gotten hired, and the fact that one candidate had a graduate degree made the difference. So yeah, there's definitely some people who still have that bias out there where, you know, especially if it's a close decision between two candidates, they're just going to default to the one who has the more prestigious degree. You know, I found this out by just doing like over 50 informational interviews. There was a time when I was job hunting. I did a lot of informational interviews, coffee interviews, phone interviews with various people of different industries and job titles to learn more about their jobs and their stories and to network. Yeah, a fraction of them, I don't know how, I can't quantify the exact amount, but probably like 5-10%, they did mention the importance of a graduate degree. Now, is that fair? Is it just, I don't know. I think when it is mentioned, it's not so much mentioned about the skills that they got through the degree. It was almost more so mentioned just the fact that they put in the work to get that degree that proves that they have, you know, higher pedigree or skill set or discipline or whatnot. So that was a funny part about it. It's not even the skills that they learned from the degree, but the fact that they have it. And I've also worked with many senior people who are managers and leaders, and for whatever reason, they have chosen to get a graduate degree. Usually it's like a master's of business administration. It's like the big degree for graduate school business related people. It's called an MBA here in the US, and that is something that I see a lot of people get. Well, not a lot, but I've seen a decent amount, like several of them get that despite already having a job secured, or they have a job, or they're about to get a job. And I think it's their attempt, from what I can tell, it's their attempt to kind of pad their resume and, invest in something, a skill set, all the stuff that could benefit them into the future. Now, there's been a lot of debate about the usefulness of an MBA. Nonetheless, I do run into quite a few people who seem to get these, and it's a good amount of work. These people are often working a full-time job and then doing some type of online school on the side. I've actually heard a lot of people, like big influencers like Gary Vaynerchuk and then Jack Welch when he was still alive, talk about how nowadays an MBA is so expensive that it's only worth it if you're getting one at a top 5 or top 10 university like Harvard or UPenn. And even then, it's not so much about what you learn, because the content is, a lot of that you can learn online through business books yourself, or a lot of these schools release their material online for free nowadays, so like iTunes U or Udemy or Coursera. Like, some of those courses are just like Business Administration 101, accounting, stuff like that. Many of those things, it's not so much about the content, but just the fact that you have the networking capabilities from all the classmates you meet at an MBA at a top school. And then at the same time, like I mentioned, there's still a lot of people who get them. And usually the people I see, they're not even getting them from like a top 10 school. They're getting them from their like local college or local, or online university. So, sometimes I am scratching my head. I personally just didn't think that the monetary investment was worth it, and the time investment for my payoff. But, it really just depends on your situation. And then you also want to like contrast that with reality. So it depends on what job titles you're looking for. Certain job titles, like, especially when it's like some type of senior role, I've seen like senior digital marketing analysts or senior data analysts or data scientists. Those type of job titles, typically when you look at those job postings, I would say like a portion of the time, maybe 30%, 20, 25, they will say something like, there'll be a one line item that says, it is preferred if the candidate has a master's or PhD in one of the following majors. And then they'll list stuff like mathematics, statistics. Your best bet is, of course, do your research, but don't just do your research based off hearsay, a YouTube guru, a YouTube topic. I'm not a guru. I'm just giving you some tips that I've learned on my journey. And the best way to do it is to actually look through those job postings that you're really wanting to aim for one day, your dream jobs. Maybe you're not there yet, but maybe in 5 years, that's what you want to get one day. And then look at those job postings, look at, what jobs you can get right now that you want, and then look to see what line items are there. And I would say if they really want it, they will explicitly say, hey, it's preferred if you have a master's in this major. And that is how you can kind of start to determine, not based off guesses or inferences or what you heard from hearsay, but actual repeated evidence that this is a degree that is worth it, that they're hearing about, saying about, seeing. But also do the same thing as I did and do a bunch of coffee interviews, informational interviews over the phone, whatever you can get from people you admire in spheres you admire, in job titles that you want to get to one day. And then ask them, because they are the closest source of truth, because they have the job you want. They're in the industries. They're in the places that you want to be in. And through that, through that networking and informational interviews through LinkedIn and, your network and all the sources and ways you can think to get one, you will find some of the truth. And it will vary from person to person and company to company, because each company has their own culture and so forth. But you will find some patterns. It may be that you find that, okay, for 70% of companies, it doesn't matter. For 30%? It does. And so from there, you'll have to make a judgment call on your own based off that information on what's best for you. And for me, at least, I just found it not to be a good use of my money. It's been obviously mentioned to me many times by, family members. Maybe even when I was in college, I was considering it. But just given the cost and the return on investment potential for my roles, it just wasn't necessary enough to really pursue. But it just really depends. It also depends on like your life circumstances. Like someone who is maybe a bit more financially secure or really see some value in that, maybe just to pad their resume even further because they have the time and they have the money and they know it can sometimes increase their chances, they may commit to that. Maybe they even enjoy school. So it just really depends on the situation, but it isn't easy. It's more work. So that's my thinking. I would say in general, depending on the jobs you're going for, especially if you're just looking for an entry-level digital marketer role or a intermediate digital marketing role, you don't need that. There's plenty of people who simply just right out of undergraduate got those types of roles. That's what really matters. What I don't want you to do is just like assume without doing your research, not checking all this actual data points and reality, and then just assuming and guessing, and then investing a bunch of time and money and resources into something that may not be worth it. My guess is that it depends on the job and company. Likely, if we're talking digital marketing jobs and data analytics jobs, especially on the entry level sphere, you probably don't need one. But once again, confirm, check those job postings, ask those people, because they will have the closest source to truth depending on what your goal and job title is. And then that is how you're going to get the most solid answer. And you may find maybe they're like, yeah, it is better. Yes, we do bias towards these things. And so there definitely is some bias out there. I remember, there's certain companies like Google where I've done interviews with staff there, and they're a very unique company where there's people who will get hired straight from high school. Google is a very open-minded company, and then there's other companies out there. I mean, I did one informational interview with one like tech stock trading type of company, and the person who was kind enough to do that interview with me, he basically straight up told me, dude, everyone on my floor that I work with has some degree from an Ivy League school, except for me. And I'm not talking graduate degree. I think these were all just undergraduate degrees for the most part. But clearly, even for some high-tech modern companies, there is some of that bias there where they just assume, okay, if they got to this school, they're higher IQ, they're better, higher performing, and that may be generally true, but is it always true? No, there's probably going to be some people who are higher performers in the real world outside of academia who didn't go to an Ivy League versus those who did. Maybe it's generally true, but there's that company and culture clearly had a bias. And the way this guy got into the company without having that degree is a story for another video, another day, but just really interesting, and talks about how you can kind of overcome that if you're lacking in that. The point for this video, though, is that it's just one factor. It's not everything. It varies depending on a company. Use everything I told you, and you'll be able to figure it out. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment about your thoughts, any tips you have for this community, and any requests for future video topics. And yeah, join my free email newsletter down below if you want free tips like this one.